In Consumer Corner, we take a look at trends and products creating a buzz here in China. On today's show, we're talking about a seasonal jump in the price of vegetables. In November and December, China finally saw an end to persistently declining inflation numbers. China's Consumer Price Index, or CPI, for November climbed slightly to 2%, up from the 33-month low of 1.7% in October. That's still very moderate inflation, but it's being driven by a not-so-moderate rise in the price of food. Food prices account for almost one-third of the weighting in the country's calculation of CPI, and central to that one-third is the price of vegetables. That portion has been shooting up, with the Ministry of Commerce reporting 6.9% week-on-week growth at the end of November. Despite predictions of a slowdown in these price hikes, December was another big month for veggies. The Ministry of Agriculture tracks the wholesale price of a basket of 28 vegetables and found that it jumped a full 22.4% over the past month. That made an average of 3.65 yuan per veggie for that month. At just 60 US cents, it might not sound like much, but these are the prices that weigh heaviest on the people who can least afford it, the urban poor who cook 3 meals a day. Xinhua News Agency reports that experts predict prices will continue to rise over the coming months. With a cold snap decreasing rural vegetable yields and the Chinese New Year requiring greater consumption for family gatherings, it appears unlikely that rising prices will level off anytime soon. But reports have also placed the recent hikes into a seasonal pattern that emerged stronger and stronger in recent years. An expert with the Chinese Academy of Agricultural Sciences told the People's Daily that current vegetable price inflation was well within expectations for winter. During 2009 and 2011, vegetables saw remarkably similar price hikes of around 22% near the end of the year. Media and academics point to cold weather and rising production costs for this New Year's price hike. Winter storms not only decrease farmers' yield of crops, but also make ground transport more costly. When it comes to the production costs, the National Development and Reform Commission reports that costs for labor, chemical fertilizers, and mechanical operations rose by 14%, 15%, and 21% annually in recent years. With margins shrinking in every link of the production chain, vegetable dealers have been forced to push up the final retail price of the nation's most popular vegetables. When talking about the long-term rises in agricultural prices, logistics always plays a major role in the equation. With China's cities and industrial areas constantly growing outwards, agricultural land is constantly being converted for urban use. Vanishing farmland has meant that many large metropolitan areas are no longer self-sufficient in vegetable supplies, instead having to rely on longer and longer transport links. Those transport links must cover longer distances and thus accumulate more in the way of fuel expenditures and the nation's notoriously high toll costs. Chinese media estimate that vegetables must pass through 4 to 6 intermediary links between the field and the dinner table, with each link pushing up costs by between 5 and 10%. In an attempt to ease the burden, China's State Council recently announced a range of preferential policies intended to cut logistics costs. These included lowering or canceling tolls on second-tier roads, but the effects of any changes haven't been felt yet. Many Chinese people have, of course, taken to the web to vent their frustrations on rising vegetable prices. One poster called 见闻致信 wrote, "When the weather gets this cold, the demand for vegetables far exceeds the supply. High vegetable prices have almost outstripped pork prices. Soon we're going to end up eating fruits instead of vegetables and call it a day." One poster juxtaposed two contrasting trends in China's agricultural markets. Yin Yin Zhou wrote, "On the one hand, the vegetable prices have gone wild, but on the other hand, many unsellable vegetables have been rotting in the fields. So who's making off with all that money?" Some netizens took it a step further by talking about regulations on the industry. One commenter wrote, "Why not introduce a planned economy just for vegetables? Departments could set a price and let it fluctuate by 5% in that range. By imposing a price ceiling and a price floor, the profits from the sales of vegetables will go to farmers instead of dirty businessmen and officials." Finally, one netizen dished out some ironic advice for price regulations in the country. Qingfu Dangxia wrote, "I suggest China's top economic planner applies purchase restrictions for food consumption just like what it did for the real estate market. How about limiting vegetable purchase to once a day and not allowing out-of-towners to buy vegetables? If we did that, then vegetable prices could be under control and stay within $16 per kilogram in 2013. There's been a heavy dose of sarcasm about the prices on the Chinese web, but for people on the fringes of society, the price increases mean pocketbooks are lighter and diets more restricted.